Very good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Last to the last class, we done regarding demand and all these little concepts, factors determining demand, changing quantity demand, the reasons for the downward scope of demand, for exceptions to law of demand. All these functions we are going to cover. Now moving down to elasticity of demand. The students for the feedback, I think voice was a bit low. Now I think it's okay. Now I think the voice is audible. I'll just show the response. So elasticity of demand, we all know, is what? Elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness which demand shows to change in price. That is, we know that with this the audio is not clear. I think now it's audible. So, elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness which demand shows to the change in price. Now, this concept is very important in order to understand the concepts of equilibrium in the different markets. In order to understand the concepts of profit competition, monopoly, we need to understand the concept of elasticity of demand. Elasticity is basically three types because there are three main factors which determine the demand for a commodity. Three main factors. One, price of the commodity. Second, income of the consumer. Third, prices of related goods. So accordingly, we have three types of price elasticity. One is price elasticity, other one cross elasticity, and the third is the income elasticity. Rather, we'll first pick up price elasticity, second income elasticity, third we'll pick up the cross elasticity demand. Now, price elasticity measures. How do you measure it? It's percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. It's percentage change basically. Percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. Now, accordingly, we have five types of price elasticity of demand. It's equals to 1, greater than 1, less than 1, equals to 0, and equals to infinity. There are five types of price elasticity. One is equals to 1. Equals to 1 kab hoga? When does it happen? When the percentage change in price is suppose 5%. Suppose price has gone up by 5% and demand has fallen by 5%. Then 5 by 5, that will be equals to 1. How do we get the elasticity greater than 1? Or when does it happen? Kab hota hai? When suppose prices changed by 5% and as a result demand has changed by 20%. Because of a 5% change in price, if the demand has changed by 20%, then we say that the elasticity of demand is greater than 1. That means demand shows greater response to a change in price. Now, elastic demand it is called. Elastic demand, it is found in the case of comfort, in the case of luxuries. Luxurious goods will have normally elasticity greater than 1. Less than 1 would obviously be the reverse concept. Less than 1, or we call it inelastic demand. Inelastic demand कब होता है? Suppose price is changed by 10%, has fallen by 10%, and as a result, demand has gone up, say only by 5%. That means demand is showing lower response, lesser response to change in price. That is inelastic demand. It is normally found in the case of necessary goods. Goods which are of necessity to life will normally have inelastic demand. Equals to 0. What is equals to 0? Obviously, when price has changed, but there is no change in demand. That is perfectly inelastic demand. Equals to 0 is a situation which we call perfectly inelastic demand. That is, demand will show no response to a change in price. Normally, this situation cannot be traced in a practical life. However, some closer examples can be with respect to life-saving medicines. In the case of salt, to some extent, salt. Without salt or without life-saving medicines, we cannot go ahead. So in those cases, we can have perfectly inelastic demand. And perfectly elastic. Elasticity equals to infinity. Elasticity equals to infinity is a case of perfectly elastic demand. And perfectly elastic demand happens in the case of when there is 0% change in price. Percentage change in price is the denominator, and suppose there is a 5% change in quantity demanded. That is, without a response, without any change in price, demand is changing either of the direction. Demand may increase, may decrease, but the price is constant. That is called perfectly elastic demand. Now, one thing you must be clear about the diagrams, because MCQs may come from these portions, and I'm just in crash course, we are just revising the entire subject, right? So, and I'm focusing only from MCQ point of view. Equals to 0, and because equals to 0, what is the kind of diagram? That is, we are measuring price along the vertical axis, and along the horizontal axis, we are measuring the quantity. I'm just giving an example. How do we draw the diagram? Price is changing. Suppose price is this much, quantity demanded was this much. At the price of this much, quantity demanded is still the same. The price is increasing, still the quantity is unchanged. Then that is called perfectly inelastic demand equals elasticity equals to 0. So if a question comes that what would be the shape of the demand curve in case of elasticity equals to 0? And so it's a vertical straight line parallel to the y. One second. A student. Next one. In case of perfect elastic demand, are you there? I want to face anyone. Are you all there? Uh, Thank you. I'm getting a response, and I thought as if a case of perfectly elastic demand, that is elasticity equals to infinity. What happens? Here we are measuring the price, we are measuring the quantity, a perfectly elastic block. Obviously, the demand curve would be a horizontal straight line parallel to the x-axis, showing that at the same price level, demand may increase, may decrease. Now, this is a situation which is normally hypothetical in nature. We can find it in perfect competition. The chapter on perfect competition you must have done. The demand curve facing a firm is a horizontal straight line parallel to the x-axis. And demand curve is nothing but the revenue curve from the firm's point of view. So in perfect competition, you must remember that there is AR equals to MR curve is like this. Next. However, if you are talking of a demand curve which is having an elasticity greater than 1, that is elastic demand, and that is like this, is having a slant slope, showing that if this was the original price, this was a quantity, and a small change in price is a greater change in demand. So this is a demand curve which is having elasticity greater than 1. And similarly, for a demand curve having elasticity less than 1, it has to have a steeper slope. It will have a steep slope. Showing that with a more change in price, but there is a lesser change in demand. The change in demand is less than the change in price, that is elasticity would be less than 1. That is inelastic demand. Next. Next. These questions we have there. Now regarding the methods of calculation, how do we calculate the price elasticity demand? What is the percentage method? In the percentage method, we had formula. It's percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price, which can be represented as change in quantity by change in price into original price by the original quantity. Change in quantity divided by change in price into original price by original quantity. That is, how do we measure the elasticity of demand under the percentage method? And obviously, elasticity of demand, value of price elasticity demand will always be negative. Why it is always negative? Because either changing quantity or the changing price, any of these values is negative. Either of these two values. Because if the price increases, quantity decreases, and if the price decreases, quantity increases. So either of these two variables, one is negative. So ultimately, the entire answer has to be negative. However, it is normally ignored. We ignore the negative sign. Total expenditure. You'll find a lot of questions coming up for these portions as well. This is a question which is normally a bit. So it's how can we show this portion, the total expenditure method. So just 3 things. We need to remember 3 points. Before going ahead, total expenditure method and all these were found by, we formulated by Alfred Marshall. Again, that's an MCQs where formulated by Alfred Marshall. Now, total expenditure or total outlay method. 15 buttons. One, if price is reduced, your quantity will increase. But in that case, if the total expenditure of the consumer has increased, that means if price is reduced and total expenditure has increased, what I mean to say, the price and total outlay are moving in the opposite directions. Then we see that the elasticity of demand is greater than 1. Then the elasticity of demand is greater than 1. Second point, if price is reduced, we know quantity will increase, but if the total expenditure is decreased, that is price and total outlay are moving in the same direction, then elasticity is less than 1. The third, if price is reduced, quantity is increased, and the total expenditure is constant, it does not change. If it is constant, then we say that elasticity of demand is equal to 1. Just 3 things you need to remember. What is total expenditure? Obviously, there is price into the quantity. And what is the point method? Point method is what? Again, relevant quite for the MCQs. On a straight line demand curve, elasticity of demand is measured as lower segment by the upper segment. Lower segment of demand curve divided by the upper segment of the demand curve. That means this is the exact midpoint. At this point, elasticity demand will be equals to 1. Why equals to 1? Because the lower segment divided by the upper segment would have the same values. However, reaching at this point, lower segment by the upper segment is this much. So I was having a more length, I was having a smaller length. Here the elasticity demand will be less than 1. At this point, the elasticity would be greater than 1 because the lower segment by the upper segment. Here the elasticity is equals to infinity at this, and at this point the elasticity is equals to 0. There is a geographic method or the point method. The value of elasticity different at different points on a straight line demand curve. Equals to 1, it's less than 1, equals to 0, greater than 1, infinity. There are several determinants or the factors determining elasticity of demand. Obviously, a lot of MCQs again come up from this portion as well. Perfectly inelastic questions come up for perfectly inelastic demand. Perfectly inelastic demand is a situation in which demand does not show a response to a change in price. Price is changing, but the demand is constant. Just for example, if the price of salt goes down, do we increase the demand for salt? Answer is no. You will not start consuming double salt. You're putting salt twice in your food. No, it's cheaper. Let us consume more. It's not that. You get the point. So perfectly inelastic demand situation where demand does not show any response to changing the price. Coming to determine elasticity demand, number one is price level. Normally, uh, for very cheap goods, the goods in which the goods for which the price is very low, the demand is normally inelastic. So you just need to know key points. You must be having a study material. Just go on underlining that is important. For very cheap goods, and goods which are having a very low price, in their case, the demand would be inelastic. But in the case of luxury goods, also it will be inelastic. But the demand for moderately priced goods, the demand would be elastic. For costly goods, also why inelastic? Because for the rich people, it doesn't matter what the price level is. But the point, availability commodities which are having more substitutes. We know what is a substitute for that. Commodities which are having very close substitutes in the market, in their case, the elasticity would be elastic, would be greater than 1. And commodities which do not have close substitutes available in the market, the demand would be, that is, if close substitutes are not available, demand would be inelastic. Why? Substitutes are not available, and if the price is increased, I cannot move to any other product because close is not available. So I'll have to consume that commodity itself. So in spite of the price having been increased, the demand will not go down. Yes, the demand will not change. That is a case of inelastic. And in case of substitutes being available in the market, even the price changes a bit, consumers will shift their consumption pattern because substitutes are readily and easily available. Next. Time period. Obviously, in the short run and in the long run, just remember two things: short run, long run. In the short run, the demand is generally, and the long run, elastic. Proportion of total expenditure spent on the product. That is, out of total budget, out of our total income, how much percent we are spending, how much portion we are spending in the. If you're spending only a very small portion, if that commodity consumes only a very small portion of our budget, the demand would generally be inelastic. फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. It will not impact our budget. However, if the commodity consumes a greater portion of our budget, the demand would be elastic. Habits, habitual necessities. In the case of habitual necessities, demand is generally inelastic. There are people who are having the habit of not consuming any food without, paying their, without doing puja, without offering flower and incense sticks to the god. So whatever be the price of the incense sticks, they will be used. Habitual necessities, we also know about tobacco consumption, about liquor consumption. Whatever be the prices, in the recent, in the corona, in this COVID situation, we had found that after a few months of lockdown, when the government opened up the liquor shops, even in spite of the taxes being levied at the rate of 30%, and in some states even more than that, there were huge queues in the liquor shops because that's a habit. Even the price rise, the demand does not fall. inelastic demand in the case of habitual necessities. Nature of commodity already explained. In the case of luxury goods, demand is elastic. In the case of necessities, it is inelastic. And various uses. If a commodity can be put to a number of users, to many users, the demand will generally be elastic. And in the case of commodity which cannot be pushed to many, which cannot be put to many users, the demand will be inelastic. Next, postponing consumption. If it is possible to postpone the consumption of a commodity, demand would be elastic. And if it cannot be postponed, demand would be inelastic. Next, I'll move on first to income elasticity. Like as you'll remember that in the case of price elasticity, we are measuring the price elasticity with the formula percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. That is with respect to price, how much response demand is showing. Next comes income elasticity. In the case of income elasticity, how to measure it? Percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price with income of the consumer. Percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in income of the consumer. And we know income and demand are positively related. They move in the same direction. They move in the same direction. So, income elasticity will always be positive. Now, it is measured as the formula percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in income, or how can we state it? Change in quantity divided by change in income into original quantity by income. Is it clear? Now, the value of income elasticity will always be positive. Next, in the case of normal goods, we generally have a positive income elasticity, whereas in the case of inferior goods, we have negative income elasticity. In case of normal goods, income elasticity is positive. In case of inferior goods, income elasticity is negative. And luxury goods will have income elasticity greater than 1. And necessary goods will have income elasticity less than 1. That is what is mentioned. Yes, someone said cross elasticity. Yes, I'll explain it. Cross elasticity refers to percentage change in quantity demanded of one commodity divided by percentage change in price of its complementary goods or substitute goods. Now we have two types of goods. One is we have substitute, other one is complementary. So accordingly, there are two types of cross price elasticity. One is with respect to substitute goods, other one is with respect to complementary goods. Now, what would be cross elasticity of substitute goods? Say for example, percentage change in quantity demanded of, say, Pepsi divided by percentage change in price of Coke. So that will be cross elasticity of substitute goods. And you all must be knowing that in the case of substitute goods, the relation between price of one commodity and the demand of the other commodity is positive. एक का प्राइस बढ़ता है, दूसरे का डिमांड बढ़ जाता है. They move in the same direction. Therefore, cross elasticity of substitute goods is always positive. That's right, positive. Khushi, that is correct answer. And case of complementary goods, the cross elasticity, the value of the cross elasticity is negative because the relation between the two is inverse. The price of one commodity and demand of the other is inverse. So that's all discussed over here. Now, I'll first move on to the multiple choice questions. The questions are before you. I think you have the screen before you. The concept of elasticity demand was developed by all, obviously, Marshall. Next, the price elasticity demand is defined as the responsiveness of quantity demanded to a change in price. Option B, 45. The answer would be B. Next, 46. Price elasticity demand is defined as proportionate change in quantity demanded divided by proportionate change in price. The option D. Proportionate change in quantity demanded divided by proportionate change in price. Option D. 47. Horizontal demand curve. Screen is not visible, everyone. Sorry, saying screen is not visible. Screen is visible, huh? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. 47. The horizontal demand curve parallel to x-axis implies that price elasticity is infinite. 47 is B, infinite, close to infinity. Next, 48. Question 48. If regardless of changes in its price, the quantity demanded of good remains unchanged, then but the demand is not changing, then the demand curve will be, obviously vertical is the correct answer. Very good. 49. Suppose the demand for meat at a medium price restaurant is elastic. If the management of the restaurant is considering raising prices, it can expect a relatively. Now, the demand is elastic, right? Elastic demand means what? That with response to change in price, demand will show a greater response. If the management is considering raising the prices, at that restaurant, the management is considering the prices, suppose by 10%, and if it is elastic demand, the demand will fall by more than 10%. So that is, it can expect a relatively large fall in quantity demanded. Option A. Now you find option B, large fall in demand. Which is the answer? Obviously, large fall in quantity demanded is the correct answer, because I hope you remember the response to change in price only if the demand is changing. That is called change in quantity demanded. So answer will not be B, answer will be A. Next. When quantity demanded changes by a larger percentage than the price, elasticity is termed as 50. Answer is, answer anyone? The answer for 50. Answer for 50. When quantity demanded changes by a larger percentage than the price, elasticity is termed as elastic. Answer is C. Answer is C. Next, 51. Am I audible now? Am I audible? Thanks. Thank you everyone. And we'll start with 51. Let us be quick. The aspect of network issues. If electricity demand is inelastic, 51. If electricity demand is inelastic and electric rates increase, which of the following is likely to occur? Quantity demand will fall by a relatively large amount, obviously not, because inelastic demand. Quantity demand will fall by a relatively small amount. That's the correct answer. Yes, Arulika Chakraborty Vidushi, that's the right answer. Option B is correct. Come on to 54. If the price of X rises by 10% and the quantity demand falls by 10%, X has 52. Answer is B, unit elastic demand, because demand and price both are changing by just 10%. Next, 53. Identify the coefficient of price elasticity of demand when the percentage increase in the quantity of good demanded is smaller than the percentage change in its price. Hema, 51 was B, 52 was also B. B for Bombay. 53. If price elasticity calculate करना है when percentage increase in quantity of a good demanded is smaller than the percentage fall in its price. Answer is C, smaller than 1. 53, answer is C. 54. The point elasticity is the midpoint on the demand curve. On the midpoint of the demand curve is 1. It's not B, sir, with the sheet. The point elasticity at the midpoint of the demand curve elasticity is equals to 1. Answer is A. Next. In the case of straight line demand curve meeting the two axes, the price elasticity demand at the midpoint of the line, obviously again 55 is also B. That's 1. If point R bisects the demand curve in two equal parts, then elastic point R is again 1. Option D. 56 is D. If a point, listen carefully to 57. If a point on a demand curve of any commodity lies on x-axis, then price elasticity demand of that commodity at that point will be. If it's right, if it's on the OX axis, then the elastic demand is equals to 0. So 57 is D. That's right answer, Vidushi. 58. In the case of a straight line demand curve meeting the two axes, the price elastic demand at y-axis, the elastic demand would be infinity. It's B, Bombay. 58 is B for Bombay. 59. What is the new quantity demanded when price elasticity is 1 and the price changes from rupees 15 to rupees 10 and the original quantity demanded was 10 units? Now, read question number 59 everyone carefully. What is the new quantity demanded when price elasticity is 1 and the price changes from 15 to 20 and the original quantity demanded was 10 units? We have to use the formula elasticity of demand equals to change in quantity by change in price into price by quantity. So elasticity demand is 1. Change in quantity, we don't know. But change in price, अपने को मालूम है, is 5. Original price changes from 15 to 10. So original price was 15. It was 10. Original quantity was 10, original price is 15, change in price is 5, elasticity is 1. We need to find out first of all the change in quantity. So obviously, some error in the options. I'll skip this one. There's some error in the options. Uh, yeah, that's A's answer. That's right. Yeah, it should be 15. Vidisha answer is 15. That's right. Coming to 16. If demand for a good is elastic, an increase in its price. Now listen this question carefully from the total expenditure method. Number 16. If demand for a good is elastic, an increase in its price will cause the total expenditure of the consumers to decrease. I said now there are just three things. If price and total expenditure are moving in opposite directions, if price is falling, you remember I wrote the board, and total expenditure is increasing, then it is elastic. They're moving in opposite direction. So in number 16, the demand for a good is elastic, and an increase in its price will cause the total expenditure of the consumers of good to decrease. Answer is perhaps the line is disconnecting. Line got disconnected. I think it was a yes, Bhumishan and Vidushi on the total expenditure method. In total expenditure method, if price has increased and total expenditure has decreased, we call it elastic. I hope you remember the three statements which we discussed. And the basic is very simple. If price and the total outlay are moving in the opposite direction, then the demand is elastic. So it's decrease 60. 61, please be careful about 61. All these questions are based upon the total expenditure method. Remember, now total expenditure from the consumer's point of view is nothing but total revenue from the seller's point of view. So 61, a decrease in price will result in an increase in total revenue. Obviously, answer is B. That's very good answer from Kushi, from Tanu. That the percentage change in quantity demanded is greater than the percentage change in the price. That is elastic. 62. Again, if it is greater than 1, if the price elasticity is greater than 1, If a good has price elasticity greater than 1, that means what? The demand is elastic. Yes, Kushi, answer B is correct. Demand is elastic and the change in price causes sellers' revenue to change in the opposite direction. 62 is B. Yes, Vidushi, that's right. 63. If the demand for a good is inelastic, an increase in its price will cause the total expenditure of the consumers of the good to. Demand is inelastic. Price increase. Then total expenditure will also increase. That's the right answer. So these type of questions will come from this portion. I'm skipping this portion. This is regarding total expenditure method. Let us come on to 69 onwards. Yeah. Identify the factor which generally keeps the price elasticity for a good high. Question 69. Identify the factor which generally keeps the price elasticity of good high. Means elastic. कब होता है? Obviously, in the case of large number of substitutes, that's the correct answer. These type of questions will come from that portion. Which one? Factors determining elasticity of demand. Yeah. I'll skip again a bit of this portion. Is going to 74. Question number 74. Positive income elasticity implies that as income rises, demand for the commodity. We're talking of 74. Positive income elasticity implies that as income increases, demand for the commodity obviously increases, rises. That's right. 74 is A. Normal goods have 75. Normal goods have 75. Normal goods have, answer please, obviously positive income elasticity. Next. For dash goods, increase in income leads to increase in demand. Obviously normal goods. Next. Increase in income leads to increase in demand is for normal goods, nothing superior, it's for normal goods. 77. If the proportion of income spent on a good increases, as income increases, income elasticity proportion of income spent on a good increases, income elasticity is greater than 1. Option A, that's right, is greater than 1. If a good is a luxury, income elasticity will be positive and greater than 1. 78 is C. So these are questions would be from income elasticity and just giving you samples. Coming to 96. Question 96. Question number 96. In case of inferior good, income elasticity demand is negative. That's the right answer. Coming to question 105. 105. If two goods are substitutes like tea and coffee, the cross elasticity is, yes, Vidushi, it's positive. In case of perfect substitutes, cross elasticity will be infinite. 106. In case of perfect substitutes, when two goods are perfect substitutes of each other, the cross elasticity will be infinite. And if two goods are totally unrelated, in case of completely unrelated goods, the cross elasticity is 0. That's a good answer. And the goods are complementary, like car and petrol, then the cross elasticity will be negative. Correct answer. Now moving down towards supply. With respect to supply, I'll straight away discuss with the MCQ portion. Uh, in between, I'll take up the theoretical portions because time is limited, and in this limited time, we need to make the maximum utilization. So I'll straight away stick to the MCQs and move to the theory later on or in between. Right now, supply of a good refers to quantity offered for sale at a particular point of time. Option B. 213 basically. The quantity supplied of a good or service is the amount that producers plan to sell during a given time period at a given price. Option C. 213 is option C. 2016. If the price of X increases, supply will obviously increase. Option A. Now, 2018 onwards, there are certain questions with respect to factors determining supply. Factors determining supply के ऊपर based questions है from 218. If the price of factors of production rises, then supply falls, supply decreases because it becomes less profitable for the producers to produce the commodity. If there's improvement in technology, then supply increases. For 19A, inventions and innovations obviously improve or increase the supply of, the supply of displaced products, decreases. Right answer. Yes, Vidush, that's a very good answer. Inventions and innovations will increase the supply of a new product, but of the displaced product, the supply decreases. Option B. 2021, imposition of commodity taxes. If commodity taxes like GST, excise duties, indirect taxes are imposed, the supply gets reduced. So decreases. And similarly, 222, subsidies are removed. If subsidies are removed, then also the supply of the product decreases. Next, others also should try. Yes, some people are trying only. Others should also keep on trying. Other things remaining constant. The law of supply states. Obviously, here also ceteris paribus. Other things remaining constant. The price and the quantity supplied are positively related. There's option C. As supply rises, price also rises. That is wrong. As supply rises, price also rises. That is not correct. Some people have said C. That is not right. Again, that mistake. Love at first sight. Supply rises, price also rises. No. If price rises, then supply rises. It's vice versa. So, 23 is actually A. Yes, now that's a good answer coming up. Supply for a commodity is directly related to its price. 223 is A. 24. Supply of a good and its price have positive relationship. Option D is correct. 226. Come on to 226. Supply curve in most cases slopes upwards towards the right. It's option C. 226 is C. Supply curve in most cases slopes upwards towards the right. Option C. Coming to 229, if we take the supply of labor at very high wages, we find the supply of labor has decreased. If we take the supply of labor at very high rates. In the case of labor, you must remember supply curve is backward bending. In the case of labor supply, as the wage rates increase, the labor supply starts decreasing. Initially, the labor supply will increase, but later on, it starts decreasing. So, is that portion clear? Next. To 30, an increase, yes, Tanu will get it. An increase in supply of a good is caused by 230. Yes, answer is D, all of the above. 231, increase in number of sellers of bike well increase the supply of bikes. 231 was C. 233. Now listen. This portion is starting from this portion, it is nothing but related to change in supply and change in quantity supplied. I hope you remember there's the same concept as change in demand and change in quantity demanded. The change in quantity supplied is what? When supply is changing only because of a change in price, other supply determining factors are constant. There is change in quantity supply. And in that case, it is also called movement along the same supply curve. This is change in quantity supplied, a movement along the same supply curve, or expansion and contraction in supply. And in this case, what happens? Only price is changing, other factors are constant. But if this was a supply curve, and if this is a new supply curve at the same price level, supply may increase, supply may decrease. That is called change in supply. Shift of supply curve. It happens only because of a change in factors other than price. So, if it is a rightward shift, that means increase in supply. Leftward shift means decrease in supply. So it is increase in supply, it is decrease in supply. But in this case, if we're moving upwards, it is expansion. Going downwards, that is contraction. So, coming to 233, when supply then obviously supply increases. That's the right answer. Next one, 234. 234. 234 is lower supply curve. Lower supply curve indicates larger supply. It's not a lower supply curve. It's not low, lower is on the right side. Next, 235. An expansion in the supply of a good is caused by expansion. Expansion means this one. No? Expansion is caused by rise in the price of the good. 235 is A. Very good. Contraction is the result of 237 Contraction is the result of decrease in the price of the goods concerned. 235 cannot be D if there 235 has to be A because expansion, and expansion is only because of a change in price. Expansion contraction is only because of change in price. Next, coming to elasticity of supply. Elasticity of supply, we start from this question 240 onwards. Percentage change in quantity supplied divided by percentage change in price. Like price positive value. Why positive? Because the relation between price and the quantity. So elasticity of supply is defined as option D, proportion change in quantity supplied divided by proportion change in price. 241, zero elasticity of supply means perfectly inelastic supply. That's the correct answer. Coming up, 241 was A, perfectly inelastic supply. 242, if as a result of a change in price, the quantity supplied of a good remains unchanged. If as a result of a change in price, the quantity supplied of a good remains unchanged, we conclude that what happens? Supply is perfectly inelastic. 242 is A, that's correct. Am I audible, everyone? Am I audible? Coming to 245, if the elasticity of supply is 0, then the supply curve will be, if the elasticity of supply is 0, the supply curve will be this one. It's not, yeah, vertical is correct answer. Which end? It wasn't A, it was vertical. For vertical supply curve parallel to y-axis implies that elastic supply is 0. It's the same way, same question, being put up in a different manner. So these several questions are from elasticity of supply. I'll skip this portion a bit. And today our next topic was actually theory of consumer behavior. I'll start with that portion. I need to start with the theory of consumer behavior as well. So just give me one moment. should we go with the concept to the study material, the theoretical part, or should I continue with the MCQs? I'll continue with the multiple choice questions, or you want me to go ahead with the theory? So many people with the theory, something with the study material, I'll go with both then. In this theory of consumer behavior, we know that here we bothered with the equilibrium of a consumer. How does a consumer attain equilibrium? So, first thing, as a consumer, our goal is optimization of satisfaction. Our goal is to maximize our satisfaction. And what is satisfaction? In terms of economics, we know utility. What is utility? Utility is the satisfaction which you derive by consuming a commodity. Or rather, it is the power of a commodity to satisfy human wants. And as a consumer, our goal is to get maximum satisfaction out of consumption of the commodity. So in this theory of consumer behavior, we have to know how does a consumer maximizes his satisfaction, that is his utility. And in that respect, we have two types of utility. One is cardinal utility, other one is ordinal utility. Cardinal utility, we all know again. Cardinal utility is the utility which can be measured, in terms of details. Given by Alfred Marshall and other economists. And the ordinal utility is which cannot be measured, but which can be compared. Cardinal is measurable, ordinal is non-measurable, right? So, going back to the MCQs, utility may be defined as the power of a commodity to satisfy human wants, and the next question, question number 2. When economists speak of the utility of a certain good, they are referring to, yes, the right answer, the satisfaction gained from consuming the good. Number 3, utility. Now, utility is obviously subjective. It varies from person to person. It is ethically neutral. It has no ethical connotations. What is ethical for me may be unethical for you. What is unethical for you may be ethical for me. Immeasurable. It cannot be measured. It's all of these. Utility hypothesis forms the basis of the theory of consumer behavior. 4 is B, Bombay. 4 is B. 5. Marginal utility approach to demand. Marginal utility approach was given by Alfred Marshall. Under marginal utility analysis, जो हम लोग बात कर रहे थे, cardinal utility, the cardinal approach. Under cardinal approach, you have the concept of marginal utility. Fraction which you derive by consuming an additional unit of the commodity. So number 6, under marginal utility analysis, utility is assumed to be a cardinal concept. Cardinal measurement of utility is required in, obviously, marginal utility theory. So 7 is A. 8. Cardinal measurability of utility means utility can be measured. 8 is A. I'll move down to number 12. Question 12. In this cardinal approach, first of all, we have the law of diminishing marginal utility. Law of diminishing marginal utility states that as a consumer, goes on increasing the consumption of a commodity, the utility derived from each successive unit goes on falling. The additional utility derived from each successive unit goes on falling. What is marginal utility? The additional satisfaction which you derive by consuming one additional unit of the commodity. So number 12, answer is D. That's the right answer. Each extra unit of good X consumed, holding constant consumption of other goods, adds successively less to total utility. 13. Marginal utility of a commodity depends on its quantity and is obviously inversely related to its quantity. Because as you go on increasing the quantity, the marginal utility starts falling. Now, coming to 14 onwards, just 2 or 3 small things. The relation between TU and MU, total utility and marginal utility, the relation between these two. You must be knowing that marginal utility constantly declines but is positive. And so long as the marginal utility is declining but is positive, total utility goes on increasing. Total utility will go on increasing, though the MU is falling. When marginal utility becomes zero, then TU is highest. When MU is zero, TU is highest, maximum. And even after that, if it won't increase, and TU starts falling. These 3 propositions you must always remember for answering these type of MCQs. So TU is maximum when option A, MU is 0. Guys, I'm getting a lot of chats regarding the screen is buffering, audio is not audible. I can't help it. The data connection at my place is quite stable. Or maybe it's WebEx. Someone said maybe getting a bit of problem. 15. After reaching the saturation point, you know the saturation point is what? When MU is 0, TU is highest. Marginal utility is 0 and total utility maximum, that is called the saturation point. As I said, even after reaching that point, if you increase the consumption of commodity, MU becomes negative, TU starts falling. So, 15. After reaching the saturation point, consumption of additional units of a commodity causes option C, total utility to fall and marginal utility to become negative. So 15 is C, that's the right answer. 16, yes, Ajay, Kushi. Diminishing marginal utility may not apply to. Yes, the right answer, Bhumi Kushi, the answer is money. The law of DMU, diminishing marginal utility, does not apply to money, to power. जितना आ जाए power, economic power, the political power, जितना पैसा आ जाए उतना ही कम होता है. The law will apply in the case of other commodities. Next, 17. Consumer is in equilibrium when, remember, under marginal utility hypothesis, a consumer attains equilibrium when MU of the last unit purchased, marginal utility of the last unit purchased is equal to the price. Is equal to the price. So answer is D. A consumer stops purchasing the additional units of commodity when margin the marginal utility of the product. Next, 19. In 19, I'm skipping, sorry, we'll move to 21. I hope you all remember that the indifference curve analysis is based on the ordinal approach. Ordinal approach states that utility can only be compared. Right. So indifference curve analysis based on the ordinal utility. So 22 is A. 23. The indifference curve approach assumes the consumer is rational, his choices are consistent, and there is transitivity of choice, all of the above. You must be knowing that indifference curves, indifference curve shows different combinations of two commodities which gives the consumer the same level of satisfaction. Different combinations of two commodities, but which will give the consumer the same level of satisfaction, and hence the name indifference. Indifference kab hota hai? What is the meaning of the word indifferent or indifference? That is when we are impartial, anything will do. I suppose this combination or this combination or this combination. Suppose here we are measuring commodity A and here we are measuring commodity B. We measure two commodities A and B. And this A, B, C are different combinations on the indifference curve. What does these different points denote? They denote that whether a consumer is having this many units of A and only this many units of B. And whatever satisfaction is getting in this combination, the same satisfaction will be getting in the combination B. That is where he is having less units of A and more units of B. The consumer is indifferent, impartial. So, indifference curve 24 number, question 24. Indifference curve approach assumes all of the above. That's the right answer. It's all the above. Shubham. 25. Indifference curve approach does not assume, yes, C is the correct answer, cardinal measurement of satisfaction. Cardinal utility approach is not applicable here because it belongs to the ordinal school. So I'm moving down for the assumptions. I'll move to the next topic. Question 27. An indifference curve represents various combinations of goods which give same satisfaction to the consumer. 27 is C. 28. When we have many indifference curves in the same plane, in the same diagram, a set of indifference curves is called indifference map. Here we are having only one. If we draw more indifference curves, this is called indifference map. So 28 was C. 29. Dash depicts complete picture of consumers' tastes and preferences. Yes, it's C. Someone who said A, again sir, आपको beloved first sight हो गया. 29 is not A, that is C. And indifference curves, the properties of indifference curve, the downward sloping from the convex to the origin. A higher indifference curve represents higher level of satisfaction, and a lower indifference curve represents lower level of satisfaction. Two indifference curves cannot intersect each other. That is, indifference curves are non-intersecting. They cannot intersect with each other. These are different properties. Now, why I started off with the properties? Because indifference curve is convex to the origin. Question comes, why it is convex to the origin? Because it is convex to the origin because of the marginal rate of substitution. The marginal rate of substitution of one commodity for the other commodity, that goes on decreasing. We have a decreasing MRS. So that is from question 30 onwards. Because option B, most of the goods are imperfect substitutes of one another. Option B, MRS, marginal rate of substitution, falls. It always falls. And because the MRS is diminishing, it's falling, the indifference curves are convex to the origin. Why does it fall? Because most of the goods are imperfect substitutes of one another. Yes, yes. One more thing, Vidushu, you're right. It's option D. The one for a particular good is attachable, and option B, A and right answer. Next, indifference curve is sloping, is downward sloping. Obviously, always. 32, an indifference curve slopes down towards the right because more of one commodity and less of another results in same satisfaction. 32 is A. 33, indifference curves is convex to origin due to falling MRS. Slope of indifference curve indicates. The slope of indifference curve indicates marginal rate of substitution. 34 is B, Bombay. Marginal rate of substitution. 35. A higher indifference curve represents higher level of satisfaction. 35 is A. 36. Indifference curve will touch neither x-axis or the y-axis. 36 answer D. Indifference curve will not touch any of the axes. 37. Which of following is a property of an indifference? The property we know is convex to origin, but the rest three are not the properties. 38. Which the following is not the property bola. 38 means which is not the property. They slope downward to the left. Yeah, this convex origin can even intersect each other. So obviously downward to the left is not the property because downward from left to right they are moving. So 38A is not the property. So these questions are from the properties of indifference curve. I'll skip this portion a bit. 41. In his attempt to maximize satisfaction, a consumer will try to reach the highest possible indifference curve. The consumer will try to reach. तो कोशिश करेगा कि highest indifference curve के ऊपर रह पाएगा कि नहीं ये बात की बात है. But he'll try to reach the highest possible indifference curve. Now, herein we also must know the limitation of the consumer. The limiting factor for a consumer is his budget line. Budget line. Again, if I measure the two commodities, commodity A and commodity B, around the OY and around the OX axis respectively, budget line shows the different combinations of two commodities which a consumer can purchase with a given amount of his money income. Budget line shows a different possible combination which can be purchased with the given budget of the consumer. Now, indifference curve, all throughout shows the same level of satisfaction. And in indifference map, we know a consumer will always want to be on the highest indifference curve. But for any equilibrium, you must remember that the budget line and the indifference map will have to be clubbed together. The budget line and the indifference curve will have to be brought together. I suppose this is IC1, this is IC2, this is IC3. The three indifference curves, out of which IC3 is beyond the reach of the consumer's pocket. Consumer's pocket will not allow this combination to be purchased, to be consumed, because it is outside the budget. However, IC1, IC2 possible, the equilibrium will be at this point. Where the budget line is tangent to any of the indifference curve. So, the equilibrium point will be the tangency point of the indifference curve and the budget line. Equilibrium is not possible at these 2 points. Reason? These 2 points are lying on indifference curve 1 on IC1, which is lower than IC2. And in IC2, the consumer is getting more satisfaction than IC1. So equilibrium point will be this. Now, a consumer's attempt to reach the highest possible indifference curve is constrained by which is the following. Obviously, C. My audio is not off, Sakshi. My audio is on. Video is also on, ma'am. Video is also on. 41 answer, Anshita Khandelwal. 41. 42 is C. 43, other name of budget line is also called the price line. The budget line is also called the price line. 43 is B. 44. 44 dash shows various combinations of two goods which the consumer can buy spending his entire given money income. Its answer C, budget line. Next. $45. 45. Which of the following statement is false? Yes. B is the correct answer. But because points on the budget line shows that they are within the reach of the consumer, that's true. Outside the budget line shows that is unattainable, beyond the reach of the consumer. Inside the budget line shows underspending, the savings हो जा रहा है. So it's none of the false. 46. 46. Any guesses? For number 46? Yes, C is the correct answer. C. He is deserving maximum possible satisfaction of the goods and is in no position to rearrange his purchase. He does not want to change. That is an equilibrium. Equilibrium means that only. That is the point wherein you are getting a maximum satisfaction and a point from where you will not like to move away from because you're getting the maximum satisfaction. So it's C, Shubham. $47. Read the question. 47. Madhya is asking छुट्टी कब होगी? $47 is the right answer. 48. All of the above. That's right answer. 48. 49. We discussed right now. Equilibrium point will be the point where the budget line is tangent to the indifference curve. 50. Consumer is at equilibrium when thank you, Nishita. The compliment. 50. Consumer is at equilibrium when slope of price line is equal to that of the indifference curve. That's correct. 51. The consumer is in equilibrium when the following condition is satisfied. MUX by price of X perhaps there's a bit of printing error. Consumer will be in equilibrium when, remember, in commodity model, it's MUX by price of X equals to MUY by the price of Y. MUX by price of X equals to MUY by the price of Y. Or rather, what they have done is just cross MUX by MUY equals to price of X by price of Y. This is what they've done. Other actual condition is this one. This is actual condition. So it's A basically. I'll move down towards the study material ones. And as I said in the earlier accounts classes as well and micro class as well, don't leave a single line from the study material, right? Uh, you should read every portion of the study material, including MCQs and everything. So, going down to the study material thing. First, it was about utility, which we discussed, about cardinal and the ordinal utility. Cardinal utility approach we discussed. The assumptions consume rational, utilities measurable, independent utilities. For the solution, total utility, marginal utility we discussed. We also discussed the relationship. We discussed the law of diminishing marginal utility, right? One more thing. Law of equimarginal utility, that is, how does a consumer attain satisfaction, attain equilibrium under two commodity model under the cardinal approach. This was the thing, MUX by price of X equals to MUY by the price of Y, where each ratio, the ratio of MU by price of each commodity should be equal. Obviously, diagrammatic presentation of this topic is not required for MCQ exams. And we discussed that under single commodity approach, consumer will be in equilibrium where MU equals to price. Marginal utility at the last unit consumed must be equal to price of the commodity. Order approach we discussed. Next one, indifference curve approach we discussed. Just advancing levels of problem system. Responding. We discussed about the properties of indifference curve. We discussed about marginal rate of substitution of good X for good Y. Wait. So this was the topic all about. Next day, we're starting our next chapter. Now see the question 7 on the screen. The slope of budget line is given by. Slope of budget line is given by. Obviously, that is Px by Py. The slope of budget line shows a price ratio. And one more thing, question number 6. The slope of indifference curve is given by. The slope of indifference curve is given by the marginal rate of substitution of x for y. So that's all about this chapter. If you have any questions, I can take up those questions. That's it about this portion today. I think this PDF is getting a bit of trouble. Yeah, thank you everyone. And we'll meet again next day. A new topic. And then this PDF started creating a problem. My videos coming somewhat Mathur. So then thank you.